Flintlock: The Siege of Dawn is a new action-adventure game from A44 that is incredibly ambitious in some ways, while lacking vision in others. It does so much correct, but too much wrong, and that's the problem. Let's get into it. In Flintlock, protagonist Noor has a chance encounter with mysterious canine god Enki. Interesting enough, this character is actually a reference to an ancient Sumerian god of the same name, part of a group of deities called the Anunnaki, whose main purpose was to decide the fate of humanity. In this game, Enki is a weakened god who empowers Noor to do the impossible: kill the other gods that have escaped the underworld. The game takes place over 3 different maps of mountains, seaside, and, well, more mountains. Much of the game is spent double jumping, air dashing, and teleporting through these environments. One could almost call the game a platformer, as the jumping is frequently required, and it definitely adds a kinetic quality to exploration. While the world emanates a Mediterranean and Middle Eastern vibe, much of the clothing is very Napoleonic in nature. It implies a wealth of culture, but it honestly doesn't ever really lean into those cultures in any way other than surface level. But the game sure is pretty to look at. Combat is fun, and with Noor's axe and firearms, it ends up being very reminiscent of the new God of War games with elements of Bloodborne. Unfortunately, it never reaches the heights of any of those games, and even worse, sometimes it seems Flintlock is truly confused as to what type of game it wants to be. Playing against run-of-the-mill enemies is enjoyable, but bosses with large masses of health and unreasonable, and I mean unreasonable, spikes in difficulty seem to solely be there to pad the length of the game. Honestly, a shame, because the pacing of the game is fantastic otherwise and doesn't really require grinding, nor is it really offered considering that Flintlock is more action game than RPG. With no real stats to upgrade, just skills to unlock, you have to accrue experience to unlock those skills, and dying means you drop everything. Sound familiar? It should. It's very Dark Souls. The problem lies in that there's no way to level up to make bosses easier. You just have to get good. Luckily, there are difficulty settings, but every enemy on easy is far too easy, and for this reviewer, some bosses on normal were close to impossible. The balance is just a little too off. Fortunately, there are only a handful of bosses in the game, as the title in general is on the shorter side. Of course, this makes sense when you take into account this is not a full-price game. At launch, Flintlock is $40, which is more than reasonable. It's a focused, short but sweet adventure that, if I'm being honest, could have benefited from a touch more focus. Flintlock: The Siege of Dawn is absolutely worth playing, but it's our recommendation that, even with its lower price, to wait for a sale or play it on Xbox Game Pass. For more games like this one, keep it locked and loaded here at Hackathon News.